And surprisingly to me, I didn't turn up much in the way of successful Google hits. I couldn't, in fact, find a particularly suitable or acceptable joke touching upon your profession. Oddly enough, my Google search did turn up plenty of jokes about lawyers, plenty of jokes about accountants, plenty of jokes about doctors, but sadly nothing about quantity surveys. Now, this suggested to me a couple of things. Firstly, that the business of quantity surveying is a very serious one. But secondly, it suggested to me that your profession has none of the image problems that mine does. So with that in mind, can I strongly suggest that you take anything I say this evening with a big grain of salt, because it's coming from a lawyer / swims with sharks, but safely because the sharks always give us professional courtesy, all of those traditional jokes about lawyers. And I'm happy if you want to tell me a few more at the end of the talk as well. But just in terms of the formal part of what I wanted to talk about, my dealings with quantity surveyors have, as James has suggested, largely been in the context of building and construction disputes or litigation, a lot of it to do with leaky buildings. And many of the people that I've actually dealt with over the years in the QS field are sitting in the room here tonight. A lot of people I have a lot of respect for and have over the years come to value the advice that they have given to me and to my clients to enable me to take matters to court in confidence, knowing at the end of the day I've got something in terms of an estimate of the cost of addressing a problem that I can rely upon. But I just, in coming tonight, I wanted to think about, well, what are the sorts of things that I am looking for? What is it that I really value when I'm instructing a QS and obtaining from that QS advice on a particular matter? Now, this is not something that I think is limited to the relationship between a lawyer involved in a dispute who wishes to instruct a QS. I could be a client of yours in any context. I think the things that the client expects of a QS are essentially the same, no matter what the context. And what I'm going to talk about tonight, I hope, has some resonance or some value to you, irrespective of whether you're in the area of giving expert opinion advice and dealing with people like me on a regular basis, or if that's not part of your practice at all. An expert witness who gives evidence in court is primarily expected to give an objective opinion about something that is an issue in the proceeding which the court can rely upon in reaching a conclusion on a particular matter that is the subject of the litigation. So the key to being a good expert is to remain objective, to have a clear communication of the opinions that you have formed on a particular matter. But to do that, you have to be able to explain and articulate to the court or to the person instructing you the assumptions that underlie the opinion you have formed, the things that have gone into the mix in terms of assessing the things that you need to assess in order to form a conclusion on a particular matter. And in your field of expertise, that's primarily dealing with construction cost issues. Now, as far as that is concerned, certainly my dealings with my own clients and discussions with other people have led me to believe that there is a bit of a misunderstanding about the nature of the opinions and the advice that your profession provides. I have a distinct impression that a lot of clients have the impression that your statements of opinion are statements of fact. That when you have, especially when you've done something like an elemental assessment or a makeup of a cost of repair, you present matters in a way that has all the look of being a mathematical calculation, with all of the precision that comes with that baggage of being essentially a maths-based statement of opinion. So what clients tend to think is, well, measures, they've measured it, that's got to be right, that's going to be a statement of fact, surely they can do that, that's just simply got to be completely accurate. And then rates that, again, it's simply got to be a statement of fact. That has to be something that can be calculated down to the last cent. And surely all of that is accurate. That is a perception that people have, but you and I both know that that is not the reality of the work that you do. What you are doing is always forming an opinion. You are making a prediction about future facts which do not exist in the real world and therefore cannot be measured at the point in time you're giving your opinion. They are predictions only, and you need to be very clear to your clients that that is what you are doing. You are making a prediction. That prediction you expect or you report to bear all of the skills and expertise that you have, but it is only a prediction, it's not a statement of fact. Now obviously the endeavour is to bring as much accuracy to that prediction as possible. You wish to make sure that as many things as you can make sure are accurate within the work that you do. That relates not only to the measures, but also to the rates and to other assumptions that you have put into the working out of your prediction, your opinion, your statement. Now, as far as that is concerned, in speaking with James the other day about a matter, I drew the analogy between what you do as professionals and what other professionals do in another context, the scientific context. Because what I think you're really doing, or what you ought to be doing, is applying the traditional scientific method, or the traditional scientific method of working out where you sit in the real world. Now that method essentially requires you to propose a hypothesis, a prediction in your case, about a state of future affairs, i.e. the cost of particular work. And then to test that hypothesis against real world realities. Essentially, in a purely scientific method, what you do is you would design an experiment to test your hypothesis to see whether it was correct, whether it needed to be altered in any way, shape or form. Now you, of course, are in the privileged position of having a ready-made experiment every time just about you do a prediction of future cost of building work. And that is when that building work is in fact done. And for all of you, what I like to see in the people that I instruct is a constant testing of the assumptions that have gone into a particular statement of opinion. The best test is against the reality of a particular job. So it's not enough to say I don't think, for those that are at the top of this particular profession, I'm satisfied having made my prediction, made my assumption about what the cost will be, but that's the end of it. I think you should always, where possible, be going back, looking at what the actuals were, comparing them with what your predictions were, and working out which assumptions you made were valid, which were not, whether there is anything that you can take from what actually occurred that will allow you in the future to make better predictions. And that is something that I've seen most of the top people in this field do on a regular basis. They don't work purely on the basis of a set methodology, a set group of assumptions which they make and they apply case after case after case, or assessment after assessment after assessment. They're constantly testing the assumptions they've made, constantly looking back in order that they can look forward with a great deal more certainty, and maybe make those assessments more accurate. Now, the fact that that you have made an assumption in a particular case that turned out to be wrong doesn't automatically mean, and we were talking about this just before we started the talk tonight with a couple of people, doesn't automatically mean that that your prediction was in fact wrong, or certainly not negligently prepared. You know, the fact of the matter is that you are always making assessments of future events. That means there will be doubt as to what will happen in the real world when it comes to implementing the work that you've been asked to make an assessment of. All that we can ask as users is this, that you use your professional judgment and skill to make sure that as much as you can, you have validated the assumptions that go into your prediction, and that as circumstances change, you learn from things that have happened in the past. And certainly, you know, when I'm involved in instructing a QS, we often have the great advantage of having the other side, or maybe there are 2 or 3 people on the other side, instruct another QS to provide a statement of opinion about the same piece of work. You should never, and certainly this is something I reinforce to all of the people I work with, you should never get so wedded to the assumptions that you have made in your work that you are not open to the idea that somebody else might bring fresh eyes to the question and come up with some proper challenges to the things or the assumptions you've made, which might cause you to adjust your position and think about it somewhat differently. And that has been the one lesson that I have taken in instructing experts of all kinds. The very best experts are people who are prepared to concede matters where it's appropriate for them to do so, to adjust their opinions to reflect more information or different facts which they didn't have access to when they first formed their view. So you should always keep an open mind. I don't think that that is an area that is confined to expert advice. Anyone in this industry should be prepared to follow the same processes when working out and validating the work that they've done. Now, the final thing that I wanted to talk about tonight was to discuss some of the risks that you take on when you're doing the sort of work that you guys are instructed to do. Part of the problem, I think, that arises out of the misperception of the work you do that clients often make They are, as I said before, often think that the work you do is a statement of fact, not a statement of opinion. And obviously, when things come, when things are done and it turns out that the work ended up costing more or costing substantially less, or things were different in reality, it's natural for people who have made the assumption that what you were doing was giving a statement of verifiable fact and not a statement of opinion, to come and ask the question, well, how come you got it so wrong? How come things were so different in reality from the way you predicted it? Now that, it seems to me, is one of the biggest risks that a QS faces. And it's the same, I think, for almost any professional providing statements of opinion or giving advice, whether it's me, valuers, accountants, anyone face the same professional risks. We're all expected to exercise reasonable skill and care. That is the standard by which our work is always ultimately measured. And that's not just simply a matter of doing what the average QS or the average solicitor would do. That is a matter of exercising your professional judgment to the best of your ability, but against the standard of the reasonable member of your profession. Now, there are things that we can do to limit